Hello
By the
everyone,
way,
and hello everyone, and welcome to Fleet's Birthday Bash. This is taking up Rambling's slot this week, but this is not Ramblings. So, a few key points. First of all, the bot is
please rename it, please.
the bot is not running. And that's a deliberate choice. For another reason. So, I will be reading the Patreon questions that would normally go in this week's Rambling slot. Basically because, well, they've paid for the privilege, it's the least I can do. But from that point onwards, please ask your questions as normal, but because this is something that I'm doing, you know, kind of as a celebration of getting a year older, I will be cherry-picking what questions I answer. So... I will not be answering I might answer every question, depends if they all interest me. So please feel free to ask away, and the reason the bot's not on is because, like I say as well, it's also, I don't want to record these questions into the sort of pile, because it's not technically a Ramblings as well. But yeah, so please feel free to ask your questions. As you always do, so if you're on Discord, leave a yellow dot next to them. And if you're on YouTube, just leave them in the chat. I will be watching. But yeah, so this is not a normal Ramblings. So without further ado, hello everybody. You can all talk now. I'm done with my little opening spiel.
Please rename the stream.
No. If you can't get your mind out of the gutter, that's your problem. So, without further ado, let's dig through the Patreon questions. So, first things first. Timu Locker asks, Fleet's thoughts, was there ever a land version of Hosh, aka a tank or some other vehicle that could steal your heart, or was my favourite? Well, land vehicle is a very... land vehicle is a very, very... Well, I suppose he says tank or some other vehicle, so I presume he means military. So, in that case, I know this is going to sound really, really sort of basic bitch, but I'm sorry, but I have a soft spot for the Tiger. I have a soft spot for the OG, just grey or desert camo Tiger. Like, I just do. I mean, I know that's about as basic bitch of an answer as you can get, but not Tiger 131 specifically, just the Tiger generally as a vehicle. Just, I know it's a basic bitch answer, but it is iconic. And it's, you know, it's... I don't have much more to say. Just, nah, it's cool.
Okay.
Brackman, after watching the latest Perun episode, would a modernized Oliver Hazard Perry with VLS and an Aegis system be a stopgap until the US Navy manages to design and build a new frigate?
No.
You do, okay,
No.
at that point, you're basically building a new ship because you can't put VLS and Aegis on a Perry. Secondly, there was a reason why the Perrys never got VLS, because the whole reason that the Perrys have their single-arm launcher is it enables them to lob any missile at any target they want to. They can lob anti-ship missiles, they can lob standard missile. They basically, and it's all contained in one central magazine that the single-arm launcher can draw from. And it can flip between those different missiles for different targets very, very quickly. They didn't have to do what a lot of other USN combatants had to do over the period, which is your arm launchers, either twin or single, are for your standard missiles, and you carry harpoon in box. The Perry just had it all in one magazine, and that's what made them such a game changer. It was a frigate that could do anything the US Navy wanted it to do without being a massive ship. it doesn't have room for Aegis either, even when heavily rebuilt. Just the deck space and the weight isn't there.
There's one other fundamental issue with them.
They're all gone, I think.
No, the whole
No.
were designed in the late 60s.
Yeah.
Those fuckers are closer to the Fletchers in hull design than they are to modern combat.
Like, make no mistake,
Like-
the OHPs have the funny stabilizers, which are the funny stabilizers. So they're not basic
But
bitch.
They are old and obsolete hull designs.
Yeah.
Like, it's very simple. If a frame that starts at, what, 7,000, or no, it was 6,000 tons or something like that, and the US push it up to 7.5, what do you think a OHP on 4,000 tons is enough to satisfy anything the US Navy needs it to do?
Yeah, the whole thing is they want the same capability that the OHP offered in the 70s today. And by that I mean in terms of the same level of I can go into basically a high threat environment and shoot at anything you want me to shoot at. Because that's what the OHP fundamentally offered the USN in the 70s and 80s. It was a ship that could go into basically any threat environment the US could envisage and reliably engage with a basic capability any target. Air threat, missile threat, subsurface threat, surface threat. But to do that today, as a frigate, you need to be a significantly more capable ship than a Perry.
It's not even
And
that. You
that-
need a modern hull, at least.
Yeah.
And if
as
you're building
Peru
a
has
modern hull,
pretty-
One more.
you're just designing a new ship.
and as Perun has pretty much clearly stated, at this, there is nothing the U.S. Navy could do about the entire program other than build a couple more Berks and hope that DDX doesn't crash and burn.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that crashes and burns, they are in serious problem.
It's like, I mean, I've said it before. What replaces Constellation on the stocks will be Constellation. It will just be a totally US original design. Honestly, we started from scratch. Definitely Gov. Completely. Definitely, honestly. Don't look too closely at it, mate. Honest.
Nah. If they need more ship right now, they're not even going to bother. They're just going to add in a few more orders of Flight 3As, maybe.
So,
Because
the
it were-
question... the CN... What is CN, Knight? You'll have to expand on that acronym. I'll come back to that question once you expand on that acronym. But yeah, so... Future Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the Soviet Navy suddenly gained in 1935 6 Slava-class battleships from World of Warships alongside the infrastructure to sustain them? Let's have a look. What are you? What are you? Fuck off. I don't want AI. Let's have a look. Okay, you are Slava class. You are a post-war or late World War II. Yeah, you are a post. Yeah, you are the post-war revisions. Not Savetsky Soyuz. You're the ship that would have been built after the war alongside the Stalingrads. Okay. So not completely insane as a ship concept. Okay. Alright. So...
Established that she's the one that's barely positively buoyant. It's
Yeah,
not
it's-
Kremlin would think by itself.
Yeah, it is. It's Project 24. It's the follow-on to the Soyuz, Svetsky Soyuz class, the post-war redesign. Okay, so if they've got 6 of them, and the capability to sustain them, if they're all in the Baltic, that's Germany shitting a brick. Because the Soviet Navy has gone from a we can casually keep them contained to a fuck shit, we cannot contest the Baltic. Because we can't do mine laying, because we don't have the free reign to do the mine laying the Germans historically did. because yes, the Luftwaffe exists, I know, but unless they absolutely positively 100% make sure they get every single one of these ships immobilized, they are not gonna be able to be confident bringing the mine layers in to do the mine laying operations they want to do and did do historically. Also, you probably don't get the close-in siege of Leningrad, simply down to the fact that even if these ships are trapped in and around the Leningrad area, good fucking luck getting that close to Leningrad with those 6 ships around. If, however, they're spread out, let's say 3 in the Baltic, 2 in the Black Sea, and 1 in the Far East, which is what I would expect to be the reasonable outcome for that. Actually, no. It would probably be 4 in the Black Sea, 2 in... Yeah, probably be 4 in the Black Sea, 1 in the... Sorry, no. 4 in the Baltic, 1 in the Black Sea, 1 in the Far East. Because you only need 1 in the Black Sea because that's just complete overkill against... Yavuz. She's just a non... She is now a non-going concern. And even with 4 ships in the Baltic, that's still significant overmatch. And the Russians are building the cruisers and destroyers to escort those capital ships already. You've got what will become the Chapayevs coming on the slips. The Kirovs are being built. You've got they're running down the clock on the Leningrad class destroyers. They're working on the successors to those as well. So that's actually, it basically comes down to how aggressive is the Soviet Navy in the opening days of Barbarossa, essentially. Do the Soviets try to do a sweep into the Western Baltic to try and force the Luftwaffe to either divert forces to try and stop them that way and take pressure off the front that way, or to try and physically take pressure off the front by conducting a shore bombardment sweep? Shooting up, let's say, Danzig or East Prussia or the North German coast. And does that cost them when German coastal combatants like torpedo boats and such come out to play? Do the Germans try and respond with capital ships of their own? Which, actually, thinking about it, their only real option at that point is Tirpitz. And Tirpitz is probably a good ship, but for even if there's only 2 of these Slavas, that's still a fight Tirpitz is not going to want to pick. Anyone else have any thoughts?
No, I'm just annoyed at YouTube Minecraft watcher.
Why?
Because Because he asked this exact question when
And
not
if-
black.
And if you note, it says in the question, I want to
Yeah.
ask Fleet's opinion on this.
Yeah, which is why I'm not going to give mine. Like, I just don't like these kind of questions.
I don't think they're that bad.
When it's semi-obvious, people are fishing for the answers they want.
No, what?
Eh?
Where's the fishing in that?
It's a fairly open-ended question. Like, that's not
I
a...
mean, more these kind of questions in general. This one's not that bad. It's just the pet peeve when people are fishing for answers they want.
This really doesn't come under that. And a better example would be an absolute hyper, overpowered navy coming back. Like, say if they'd been given 6 Slava-class missile cruisers, that would have just been complete overmatch. That would have been fishing. Okay. Oh, right. Okay, for Dragon and Foxo, and I will put this one to them. Thoughts on the ships announced in today's Azur Lane stream. Ships announced so far: Lexington 2, William D. Porter, Pasadena, Cowpens, and Cleveland Meta.
Put it this way, these new ships have gotten Azur Lane Facebook account and Twitter account heavily restricted.
Wow.
Because they pushed too far in the PG-18 rating.
Oh dear.
Because are we good to post the images on your server?
I'd rather you didn't.
They're all within Discord's terms of service.
Still rather you didn't. I've got nowhere for the anime to go.
But
Anime kind of just goes wherever, but
yeah,
Um,
one of them is quite obviously yeah.
that is a question these days, Brackman. But
Alpen is very
true to her name.
yes.
hmm. So a second cowgirl has hit the Pentagon.
It's worse than you think, actually, with one of the other, with her actual opening quote. But
Yeah, they have firmly strayed too far into fetish material, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the fair way of putting it.
Brackman asks, "What is your opinion on the new command ships in Sins 2? I've not played with them yet, but I think they're a good addition. They're a nice.
I think they're pretty
they're,
bad.
they're a nice in between in terms of not being capital ships that aren't the Titans. I have been missing. They're a realization that there's something the mods have gotten right a lot, like an in between option between the Titan and capital ships. Something that you can use to lead your most important fleets, but not something that, you wouldn't have, but you don't have to commit to having, the Titan leading your most important fleets if you want. You can
It's
keep
not
it as
make or break if you lose it.
yeah.
But it's not. No, that makes no sense because losing Titans not make or break.
But I like them. I think they're a nice middle of the road addition. I've always been very fond of this sort of this concept of a mass producible super heavy capital ship in games like Sins. Like there's a reason why there's a reason why a lot of the mods have ships similar to this as options. You can either have, like for the Empire, you can have the Executor, or you can have 3 Mandators, for example.
No.
In certain mods. What was it? I think it was the proper OG.
You're referring to Sins of a Galactic Empire, and they weren't mandators, but
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like the sort of an in-between option, whereas now it's in base game, which I very much like. I like them. I really do.
I absolutely despise them. For one, a number of them have just completely invalidated all of the other ships. So it's a case of why do you bother producing the others? Because they're not that much more expensive. They are just superior in capability in a number of regards. Others make no sense, like the Tech Enclave one is literally useless. Oh, I can build cruisers in the middle of a battle. But the carrier already can do building. And you're a tech player. So your star bases build starships. Your shipyards build ships. It's nothing really that useful to you.
Did they fall into the NSC Juggernaut conundrum?
Some of them, yes.
Where it's
But-
cold. Why would you ever need it?
Whereas some of the others is just, these are just better than everything else. Like the Advent stuff.
Yeah,
And-
it's sort of like how in NSC, the
Also,
only
the fact...
Juggernauts that are worth it are the ones that give aura heals. Because they give
Also-
percentage heals.
It's the fact that these are a single ship per faction for 13 bloody quid. Like, I like Sins 2. I've not played much of it. That's because I'm waiting for mods, but it just makes me go,
£13 for a DLC like that. That's not
Yeah.
bad.
yes, it is.
No, it's not.
£13 for a single ship per faction.
Yeah. That's not...
Remember, you are talking to a Paradox player.
No, that is real bad.
No, for the amount of
Yeah.
content we get,
No,
that's perfectly fine.
Oh, no, for
I'm
a
pushed out.
single ship per faction,
Hmm
13 quid is not good value.
That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable
So,
value.
no. So that
It's a 6 ships. What you're effectively looking at £6.10 per £2.10 per ship.
that's less value for money than most Paradox DLCs.
Mm,
Because even the asset pack in Paradox games are $7.99.
Like, and from what I've been
And
hearing, most of the
you
modders
get
have went,
36
these are
unit models for
interesting and
that.
all. They gave, but they haven't actually gave you anything unique. Like, modders could do this already. So it's not unlocking any code, it's not making any new code that's interesting stuff to do with. I might grab it at some
There's
point
no
when
that
I've
should have
never
been
really
a part of
got
the
the DLC,
base
but
game.
to a degree, yes. I think it's probably one of their weakest DLCs yet. We'll have to see how the others two come, because there's a full single-player campaign, and the fourth set of factions is meant to be coming out.
Oh yeah, the fourth faction, the thing the Vasari have been
Harbingers.
the thing the Vasari have been running from.
So we'll see
Scream.
how they do that, but while I love the base game, I don't like their DLC so far. And this is kind of seen in some of their reviews. Reinforcements people do like, but on average, from most people I've talked to, it's a case of why? As I recall, where is it? Sins of Rebellion. So, yeah, the Sins Rebellion DLCs, which price hasn't really changed over time, gave you so much more, as in entirely new sets of planets, new specialization systems, new different researchers.
How much does that cost?
Like a $5. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. It's just too much for too little. It very much is falling into the modern day system where you can just go, well, it's content, so you can charge them 15 quid for it.
It's Paradox DLC pricing.
The only advantage I would say is that Sins 2 is relatively cheap for what it is at 40 quid.
Okay, I'm gonna read this question aloud, and then I've got to basically come down on it like a ton of bricks. Okay. 9631 asks, as the destruction of the F-18 Super Hornet VF-11 by the Ticonderoga-class cruiser USS Gettysburg was due to inadequate integrated training, weak forceful backup on the cruiser, and poor cohesion across the strike group, the collision between the USS Harry S. Truman and the tanker Betticus M due to Truman's bridge team's failure to execute safe navigation, the destruction of an F-18E Super Hornet of VF-136 due to an aircraft brake failure combined with poor communication between the bridge, flight deck control, and hangar control, and the destruction of an F-18 Super Hornet due to inadequate maintenance, low manning, and limited technical knowledge, and insufficient training, compounded by the tempo of combat operations. So with inadequate training, inadequate maintenance, poor communication and cohesion, inadequate manpower, and limited technical knowledge being factors in these 4 accidents, how much do these 4 accidents speak to the complacency with which the US Navy has gotten since the end of the Cold War? I am going to first point out that you've said a lot of stuff that hasn't yet been definitively proven. That's what we think has caused partially some of it. But that is...
Batman!
But I will point out, a lot of the reports have not yet been written, and a lot of the investigations have not yet concluded. So a lot of this is conjecture. But I would point out that that for a force that is engaged in as many operations as the US Navy is engaged in, with the force structure it has, doing the combat operations it's done, the fact that we're looking at a grand total of 4 accidents only is good innings by anyone's metric, I would say, given the scale of the force. I think they should be congratulated on it only being 4 accidents. And I don't think any of them resulted in fatalities. Even the shoot down that Ticonderoga, that the USS Gettysburg did, the pilot punched out. There is a UNSI. Yeah, okay, yeah. There's a USN. A USNI article night is not an official Navy report about the incidents. It's an article written by the United States Naval Institute, which may or may
I'm
not.
also reading it now, and it's a lot more neutral. Like, my brother in Christ, we've told you about loaded questions before.
Like, these things happen in the military. Like, it's unfortunate to say, but shit like this happens. Especially when you're on combat operations, in the environment Truman was in. They happen.
It happened in a combat arena. Shit happens. Especially in a relatively confusing arena such as the Red Sea.
And bear in mind, collisions between ships require two ships to be involved. Why is everyone putting the blame on, the aircraft carrier's bridge crew that are trying to do aircraft carrier things, and not on the tanker crew, whose sole job should just be steering their ship? Not worrying about, are we facing the right way to conduct flight operations? Are we sailing into the wind? What's the position of our plots on deck? Like, the
But
bridge
Supercarrier doesn't need to do that. And Supercarrier has two command crews for that specific reason. Like that, I understand criticizing the carrier crew. Because they have two chains of command, one that specifically controls the air wing, takeoff and launch, and one that keeps the ship safe. Like that, I understand criticizing about.
I disagree. I think the onus really should be on the tanker crew. How the hell did they attack a supercarrier?
Because the fact that a supercarrier is a lot more maneuverable than a tanker. Especially from I'm reading a fully laden. A fully laden tanker with more fuel oil on board, with more fuel on board than the displacement of the supercarrier. It's like the carrier should have been the one to move. But that aside, holy fucking loaded question, Batman. Because I'm currently reading the Russia Today article on it, and not even that is as loaded as Knight's question. With the immediate assignment of blame. And the assumptions made. So yeah, Knight, please stop being so loaded with questions. Thank you.
Especially when it comes in relation to the US. I get you don't like the US right now, but come on.
But the fact you're entering the same category as Russia Today.
Aperture Science Enrichment Center has tasked you with designing a carrier to offer to the DoD, using the latest and greatest of Aperture technology. What would an Aperture Science carrier have that would make it specially Aperture Science?
First things first, it would be a converted oil tanker.
That would be very Aperture Science.
That can time travel.
Yeah, it would. That's exactly what it would fucking be.
I could take everything the Borealis can do, put it on a converted oil tanker aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Honestly, given some of the things that Aperture have access to, it wouldn't surprise me if it was an aircraft carrier name only, and was actually just teleporting bombs onto people. Because Aperture did have a prototype that would just turn someone's blood into nitroglycerine.
That is, Aperture Science really, really was giving, really, they really, yeah. Aperture Science, yeah.
There is a reason before Half-Life 3. I know, I forgot. I need more Half-Life opium. There will be Half-Life 3. And there's a reason why the Combine really, really want to get their hands on the Borealis. And there's a reason they can't. And the Borealis is just an Arctic exploration ship. That's time traveling by accident. Or maybe teleporting to time.
She's got the portal tech aboard, that's why everyone wants her. Because no one can find the actual Aperture Science labs. And also, when they do find the Aperture Science labs, they run into a GLaDOS-shaped problem.
Well, the Borealis has the issue of several times, if you read, she's appeared in other dimensions.
Oh.
Like, the Borealis is just a floating SCP article that goes, you know what? Fuck your laws of reality. I'm replacing them with my own.
Oops. I almost flew
Oops, I
to
turned your blood into
Grand Dwarf.
wine.
Do not fly into White Dwarfs, it's bad for your spine. I'm gonna skip YouTube Minecraft watchers questions about battlecruiser names. Not really that interested in that one. Don't know enough about the West African question to answer that one. So I'm gonna skip that.
What period West Africa?
1860s, about the British abandoning their
1860s.
colonies in West Africa.
The Niger Company.
Apparently.
I don't think that's a good idea, but
Well, because the British can't abandon the West Niger Company. Because the British don't control the West Niger Company.
Already talked about cancellations earlier, so I'll skip Slayer's question. Gunnery officer. What if during the Battle of Midway, Saratoga was undamaged and was present at Midway and operating alongside Yorktown in the task force? Since it's a 4v4 carrier battle, which side is going to win? Do you think the IJN could bag both Yorktown and Saratoga in the battle instead of just Yorktown like IRL? If Saratoga's undamaged, Yorktown isn't there. Because they don't need to turn around like rapidly and rush her repairs. Because they've got a fresh carrier to give Nimitz the 3 carriers he needs to commit to the operation. If Saratoga is undamaged, Yorktown will not be present at Midway. Simple as that. You don't need to rush her repairs at that point. But if for some reason they do, that's another carrier air wings worth of aircraft to drop on the Japanese. Which may mean that they do not get the counterpunch. Hiryu dies. Like, they just... You know how there was the phase where the US aircraft get the drop on the Japanese carriers, sink 3 of them. Hiryu then counterpunches and sinks Yorktown. You may not get that counterpunch. The US may just go 4-0 and just fucking crush the Kinabutai utterly.
or Saratoga's air wing gets sent off alongside with Hornet and get lost as well.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Okay, I just to correct myself previously. The West Niger, the Nigeria and West African question was in the 1860s, so it was still be the African Steamship Company, who were doing the colonies along the Niger River until the formation of Lojoka, which led to the formation of the Niger Company in 1877. And none of them are royal chartered companies. They're private ventures. So the British have no control over them.
Yeah. Right. Here we go, officer. In World War II, the USM built transport destroyers and converted flush decker destroyers to transports. What was the thought process by having troop transports on a destroyer hull? Rapid deployment and the ability to conduct naval gunfire support with their destroyer main guns that are still left aboard. Yeah, the whole point was to basically create a one-ship do-it-all force that could go and take that tiny little bit of fucking sand over there the Japanese have put a radio beacon on, and we don't want them to have a fucking radio beacon on it, and we don't want them coming back. So we're sending.
Importantly, they are fast.
Yeah, so we're gonna send these 4 Higgins boats on this converted Fletcher to go and blow up that fucking tiny fucking island with like 10 Japanese dudes on it, and we're gonna send 100 Marines to do it.
Fletcher.
And it will go and do that quite handily by itself. That's basically
Doing
the
it
whole
on
point.
a Fletcher. Doing it on a Fletcher hull may be a bit of a
They did it. They did it on
waste
a
of
Fletcher hull.
asset.
They did it on a Fletcher hull. Those are the ships they converted.
Yeah, but apparently weren't they the badly damaged Fletcher hulls?
Not sure.
Because I'm correct, a lot of destroyers that get converted are ones that have been repaired but aren't fit for military duty or frontline service. I remember one of the Higgins boat. I remember a lot of the were literally bent.
Hmm. I thought I'm gonna skip the one on the amphibious command ships. I'm not really that bothered. Slayer, if Tosa and Cargo are finished for the Washington, I'm just gonna check YouTube as well quickly before I do that. No new questions from YouTube, so we'll keep moving forwards. If Tosa and Cargo are finished before the Washington Naval Treaty, what would happen to them? Would Britain and America get 2 additional battleships? Would they manage to get a higher tonnage allowance? No, basically, you're probably looking at an as-is treaty. But the only exception is basically everyone gets a pair of... Basically, everyone gets a pair of treaty breakers. Well, sorry, the British and the Americans get 3 treaty breakers. So for the British, one of those will be Hood, and then they'll be able to build a pair of other treaty breaking ships. For the Americans, they will probably choose to either design a new ship or complete 2 of the Lexingtons as is, and then convert 2 Lexingtons to carriers. There's no real reason, if it's just Tosa and Kaga that are finished, in addition to what we already have historically, that doesn't fundamentally break the treaties to a degree that you require more changes than what I've just listed.
It blows it wide open.
Not really, no.
Well, yeah, because going off the treaty as we had it to begin with, Britain already said we're not getting rid of Hood. If Hood is ever counted in anything towards this treaty, we leave. Because Hood was brand new. The fact there's now 2 Japanese 10 and 16-inch armed battleships is incredibly important. Because Britain won't settle for 2.
Well, no, they have 3 ships total. But
no, they don't. Because Hood's not count. Because they will not count Hood.
Well, no. In this case, they can count Hood as one of their 3.
They
ships.
won't, though.
That I feel like you're being overly reductive and not really thinking about.
No,
this.
because no. Specifically, as we know from the cliff notes of
the actual treaty.
Treaty. For the purpose of negotiating treaty, Hood didn't exist. Because both the Americans and the Japanese knew they couldn't touch it without the Royal Navy walking away.
America tried to touch it, and the Royal Navy basically said, "We absolutely refuse any treaty where Hood is brought in." There's a whole clause about Hood, as I recall, in the treaty.
Well, unless
Yeah.
under anything other than total capital ship tonnage, which she does still count towards.
But she is not classed as a, and also, 8 15-inch guns ain't 10 16-inch, so she won't be counted. The only thing there she has is she's 50,000 tons. So no, Britain will say they want at least 3.
I fundamentally,
New ships.
I think you're wrong. I fundamentally disagree. I think, given her size and overall speed and armor package, she is an equivalent to Tosa and. Because yes, Tosa and Karga have more powerful guns, but they are much weaker They are far weaker protected. Hood can absolutely hurt them, and
it's not.
and if Hood chooses to run, they can't catch her. So
She has a
she's
uniform 11-inch belt. While yes, 11 inch is a little on the low side, that's still enough that Hood does not want to get close enough to engage that.
Remember, Hood's technically got a 12-inch belt. She ain't got a uniform 12-inch belt. A lot of her belt's 6-inch at this point.
Let's have a look. That's a uniform.
Again-
Because, right, the issue with Hood is the Royal
Right,
Navy
just to be
and
clear,
the people that are negotiating there refuse to put her on the table. There's no reason that's going to change. And at most, the closest I can see we can reliably say OTL is, okay, instead of 35,000 tons, I think Tosa's the bigger one, isn't she?
Oh, yeah,
Toast is
out of-
44,200.
Hood is-
well, sorry,
Hood is-
43,400, 43,500 full ton. Yeah, no, 44,200 standard tons at full load.
they're still not the biggest ships.
Which means
Hood is.
that the
No.
Go on.
which means that 44,000 tons becomes the basis for the 16-inch treaty ships. Frankly. And the
Yeah,
Royal
somewhere
Navy
around there,
builds 5
44,
of them, the
45.
Americans build 5 of them, the Japanese get 3. And the Japanese get shafted because they've still got to keep Nagato and Mutsu around.
No, they don't.
While the
Why would
Royal
they
Navy
need to
gets
keep
to
those around?
finish. While the Royal Navy get to finish all the G3s as G3s.
Why would they get Nagato and Mutsu?
And because they're already built, unless you think Japan's going to scrap them.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is why we need to think, because like Nagato and Mutsu are
Nagato and Mutsu
finished.
are built. You've
Which-
got 4 16-inch guns for Japan. Which means that you're going to either get 6 or 7 for the Royal Navy and the US Navy.
Yeah.
You've already got 3. You've already got 4 Colorados. Technically in the work because you've got the 3 and then the 4th that was cancelled.
So you can get those
that are
4.
44,000 tons.
And they're gonna the
Which
US are
probably
gonna
need
want.
1920 South Dakotas.
I think you're probably looking more towards the Lexingtons.
Yeah, I
You-
probably think they would complete the
No. There is
No.
no way the U.S. is gonna do the Lexingtons over to South.
It would make
South
sense to do
Dakotas.
South Dakotas, but the problem is, I more see
Lack of
Congress going,
speed.
well, you've already laid. Well, no, I see Congress going, you've already laid those down.
Have they started converting them?
No.
They're
The
they're
conversions.
far too different.
Yeah, the conversions are drawn up and begun
Like-
after the treaty is locked in place and
Okay.
signed.
Like, this is why I agree. The idea of them doing South Dakotas makes far more sense, but also I just go, but Congress was already stingy on giving you the budget for the Lexingtons. Are they?
Yeah. But
they really
the
gonna
South
do this out?
Dakotas were going to be cheaper than the Lexingtons.
They are, but I would point out that
The contract's
There's
already
also-
given.
there's also a point to make here about what the USN also needs. The USN has a comfortable battleship edge over the Japanese, even with just the 4 Colorados. What they don't have is a wing of their battle line / battle cruisers that can move faster than 21 knots. So, from a logical perspective, despite all of the flaws with the Lexingtons, they do give you capital ships armed with 16-inch guns that can move faster than 21 knots. And they'll give you 4 of them.
That's
Probably 3 of them, actually.
no. You're being way too logical, Fleet.
No,
The
I'm
USN
trying-
would love. The U.S. Navy would love to have that. The U.S. Congress is not gonna let you have that.
Well, no,
yeah,
why would...
because the issue with the Lexingtons and why I don't see them being finished, and they build something like the South Carolina, not North Carolinas instead, is purely because the U.S. Navy, even OTL, couldn't articulately justify why they needed them, especially to the more isolationist elements in government. Because battle cruisers are the tool of empire, Americans not an empire. And the Lectons are battle cruisers.
And fundamentally, there's nothing in the treaty that's saying you can't still convert the Lexington to carriers.
Yeah.
There is still the carrier allocation, and there's no reason to not just convert the Lexingtons.
Yeah, and the US Navy knows the shortcoming of the Lexingtons. Like, they try and revise the design post Jutland, and they find they can't. Because the
imagine.
Lexingtons are that extreme. They lightly built. But from the British perspective, you're getting 4 G3s.
I think they might settle with
And-
they might settle with 3, because I think that's probably what they'll get bartered down to. Because at that point,
I don't think you'll get G3s.
They're not going to accept parity with the
I-
Japanese.
I don't think
I
you'll get...
do.
Because
Well-
the Royal Navy had to be, the British government and the Royal Navy had to be taken down kicking and screaming with debt relief to accept the Americans as a peer.
I
Because
know.
the question is,
You're not
What-
getting them to accept the Japanese as a peer.
No, I
because
agree.
then the question is, Fleet, in regards to you saying they're not getting you don't think they're getting G3s. What else do they get?
Given the fact that given the tonnage requirements that we're setting here, which is probably given that it's supposed to be
44,000 tons.
no, given that it's a disarmament treaty, unless it's there's a reason why tonnage comes down from the latest and greatest everyone's planning on building. It doesn't stay at what everyone was expected to build. It comes down.
It's based off what's in the water. But it's a step up from what's in the water.
Well, I would argue
Yeah,
that
your problem is
Tosa-
can I
Kage has
finish?
already been
Can I-
built.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make my point?
Okay, go on.
So, the point I'm trying to make is, given what we know the British managed on 35,000 tons, given that they can easily, comfortably outmatch the Tosas with, I'd say, 40,000 to 42,000 tons, and given that they will probably want the Americans to build something that can't match them, I can see the British making an argument for the limits to be 40,000 tons, and for any new construction to fall within that limit. The British can very easily create a 16-inch arm and probably 27, 28 knot battleship. Basically, Super Nelsons. That's
No.
what
Outright no.
Nelson has
Yeah.
a name plate.
Well, so
It's called
li-
the G3.
doing that, Fleet, literally, it's a case of, well, Britain's just accepted inferiority to Japan.
What? No, I was
If-
talking about...
and let-
Right,
Well,
okay,
hold on.
right. Here's the thing,
I was
wait,
talking
no,
about
no,
the
no.
design, not the numbers of ships constructed.
Yeah,
The
point
yes,
out.
but you're giving
Wait,
Britain a ship 4,000 tons
both of you,
lighter.
both of you. You're arguing with ghosts because the lower end designs for the G3s are 42,000 tons.
No, the design that's not.
No, the one that was accepted for service was 48,000 tons. But the design goes, especially during the negotiation of the naval treaties, they get it down to 39,000 tons
Sauce.
Oh.
by dropping a lot
No.
of the belt extended.
Sauce. Because I've not
Source currently looking at Wikipedia and Wikipedia
Uh,
sources.
I do not see anywhere saying that they would have dropped to 39,000 tons.
I'm looking at currently it is David K. Brown, the Grand Fleet Warship Design and Development, 1906 to 1922. That they were able to get the G3 design down to and retain the G3's combat capabilities down to 22,300 tons.
Yeah, sorry, I don't believe they're shaving off 10,000 tons that easily.
Because they're not, they're shaving off 4,000.
No, going for... You said 39,000 tons.
No.
Yes.
Right, no, I said if you're sacrificing performance capability, the lowest they got it down, period, was 39.
Again,
Keeping the combat capability, they got it
Britain's
down
not-
to 42,300.
Again, Britain wouldn't accept that, though, because, again, if Japan's sailing around with a 44,000-ton warship,
Yeah, but
they're going to have a
That's not
44,000-ton
the point.
warship.
the ship they're building is just finishing the G3s.
Yeah.
Because it's in the weight tonnage, it's a 9 16-inch guns, it fits the treaty, it's the
It's
definitive
the speed they are.
speed
It's the speed
advantage.
they're after.
They just built the G3s.
To be honest, I
And
would say they
the,
would just try
the
and build
next
the
three are
G3s
just
anyway.
improved
I think
G3s.
I will just raise a point of order. I think you're far too obsessed with this idea that the British are this stupidly unpragmatic, and they'll pursue this idea that their ships have to be bigger by tonnage than any of their opponents, which has
That's
not
not
never
what we're
It's
saying.
not bigger.
British
It's
practice.
it's
equivalent.
parity.
Well, yeah, they could
But
get a ship.
it's better at that. It's there's no just right. They're already building the G3s before the treaty, right?
Yes.
In this timeline, they have the justification with the Tosas to not cut them down into the ship that becomes the Nelsons. Because they don't have to get them down to 35,000 tons. Because
Yes.
neither Britain nor America are going to accept 35,000 tons when Japan's rocking around with 44,000.
I mean, what does that tonnage really get the Japanese in terms of actual performance? Not that much.
29 knots and 10 16-inch guns.
It does.
Well,
but the
26.5 knots, 10 15-inch guns, a decent protection for what they are. Not perfect, admittedly, but they are solid ships of 1920.
Oh no, I'm not denying that. What I'm more saying is the if you look at, and then you look at the British. The British could build a G3 version on 39,000 tons that would arguably be superior to
No,
that
No.
ship.
no, because that 39,000 tons version, as Foxer just pointed out, you're scaling everything back so much. You're going back to a battle cruiser
Yeah.
armor scheme.
No. Okay,
basically.
so you're going from the predicted 30 to 32 knots to 26, 28 knots predicted speed. And from what I'm reading, you're going from 20 small tube boilers down to 16 small tube boilers. And you're going down to a 123,000 shaft horsepower.
You're removing the British Navy's want for a G3.
Well, no, you've still got a decisive battleship speed advantage.
You
They're
don't.
just
Not if once you drop down to that speed, you don't have decisive anymore.
well over the Americans. And
That's not
Royal
saying
Navy's-
much.
yeah, but 26 to 28 is still fucking fast for the period for a battleship.
Not
Compared to the
fast.
QVs and the Colorados,
The Kiwis are doing
And what the-
25.
The Kiwis are not doing 25.
They can do they were recorded hitting it, but 24 to
Yeah,
25 not.
but
But the
that's
Kiwis are
their
known
third
for.
speed. They're 24 knot, 23 knot ships.
You've basically
Practically.
now got a two-tier fleet in the Japanese and British navies. You've got the Tosas and the Nagatos in the Japanese force, and you've got the G3s and possibly
The
if you want
G3
to lump,
pluses.
and if you want to lump Hood into that as well, given she's technically fast enough and powerful enough to just be on the end of that bracket. Because she's definitely not in the same bracket as the other tier, which for the Japanese is the Fusos, the Iseis, and anything else they're keeping, and the Congos as well. And for the British, it's the 15-inch ships and the 13.5-inch ships. The US doesn't have this same dynamic because they have standard class battleships.
They all have 20. Yeah.
Yeah, and they all
There are
have,
just all floating bricks with different guns.
yeah, different levels of floating brick.
So assuming that, because the Americans aren't going to accept parity with the Japanese, we're talking Woodrow Wilson's government accepting that people that aren't white are human here.
True, it is. It
If
is
that Congress have their way, you'll see 5 South Dakotas.
Yes, well, you'd probably see 4 Colorados and 3 South Dakotas. So we already got 4 Colorados. And Congress ain't paying to replace the Colorados this early.
No.
You've got at least 4 G3s because they laid down 4 G3s. And probably 3 G3 derived vessels. Or, and hear me out, you end up with 4 G3s. 2 G... or maybe 5. And then you get 16-inch armored battlecruisers. To replace Tiger and Lion. And at that point you're looking at the K's.
This is honestly a really interesting situation because the British just don't have an equivalent for Nagato and the Colorados. They don't have a 16-inch gun arm. And there's no reason for the British to build anything that's just not AG3.
Yeah.
So you run into this issue of how do we count this?
And so you run into the issue of the other 2 powers have baggage, the Royal Navy doesn't.
Yeah, and the other 2 Navy is not gonna it's probably not gonna just let you not have baggage.
Can we spare a thought for the poor old Italian and French navies who were just off crying in a corner?
Oh no,
It don't matter, who
Japan's
cares?
crying in a corner.
Exactly. Japan's already crying in a corner.
I don't care about them. Fuck off. I'm more concerned with my
Because
beloved
you
French
heard
navy.
it. You got a Royal Navy that's rearming. And made most of their fleet irrelevant. And Americans who would be looking to rearm against the Royal Navy, and it's made most of their fleet irrelevant.
I mean, the 13.5-inch ships are in the same state they were in historically. They are the bottom tier of the naval treaties. But the difference is that the bottom tier will now be the Iron Dukes as opposed to the Iron Dukes and Tiger will be the absolute bottom tier as opposed to them being a step above the ships that were the absolute bottom tier. Because remember, the British retained a few of the Splendid Cats and 2 classes of 13.5-inch battleships, with the Iron Dukes kept around actually semi-actively, performing in fleet exercises during the early to mid-20s. It's only at First London that you see... At First London, you see the older 13.5-inch ships go, and it's Second London where they finally all bow out. So the difference here would be that you would have the absolute bottom tier would be the Iron Dukes and Tiger, because they are the absolute bottom bitch that you can consider to be relevant as
Just remember,
second-line units.
as long as you say Hyuga and then New York and Texas are around, the Iron Dukes can break those 4 over their knee.
Issei and Hyuga, I'd say, are easily capable of crushing an Iron Duke between their thighs. Wait, what? That was what I meant.
No.
Shit. No, Issei and
Crushing? No.
No, the Isseis
Putting
and
up a fight,
Hyuga-
yes.
No,
but
the
not
Isseis and
even close to
Hyugas
crushing.
are superior to the Iron Dukes easily.
They're
Easily.
not.
They are.
They're not.
They are 12, 14-inch guns, 20,
They are
22 knots.
marginally more powerful.
They're better in every way.
They're not.
They are.
They're riveted construction versus welded construction.
And more importantly, we're looking at Japanese steel.
Their biggest difference would be that they do have a decisive speed advantage. That I will give.
And a decisive
Actually,
firepower
correction,
advantage.
Actually, no, correction, no. Actually,
Maybe
they
not
don't.
decisive,
I was
but they
looking-
do have
no, I was
slightly
looking
more.
After first reconstruction, later, no. As they were built, they only have 23 knots, so it's not even decisive.
Yeah, it's
It's just they are basically 1.5 knots faster, which is good, but not decisive.
until they're rebuilt, it comes down to fire control. And the Iron Dukes have very fucking good fire control.
So do we
They
say
have the Admiral-
Beluga.
No, they actually have quite a bit worse because the British have the Admiralty Fire Control Director,
Knight.
which at the time is the best fire control system basically in the world.
Knight, if the people are coming together to try and get the treaties, the 13.5-inch ships will not be sacrificed to get new ships, because that's not the point of this treaty. The point
some
of
of them probably might. Some of them might be.
The point of this treaty is to get everyone to stop building new ships and calm down for a bit. Everyone's building this tranche of new ships because the Japanese have a pair of new ships that everyone else needs to match. After that, everything settles down into a treaty similar to what we know, which means you do still get 13.5-inch, 14-inch ships sticking around in the various navies. What you don't see, that you did historically, is you don't see any 12-inch ships left in the Japanese or US navies like you did historically for the first period of the treaties. Both the Japanese and the US retained some older 12-inch combatants for the first period of the treaty, and the US still retained the 12-inch combatants all the way up to and during and through World War II.
They kept the Kawachis?
The Japanese did for the first part of the treaty, but then they were kicked to the curb at First London. Although they weren't really
And it's going to be
active.
painful for the naval history nerds, but Texas and New York are gone in the 30s.
Knight. Yes, G3s, TOSAs, and South Dakota 921s are running around, but they're also not they're also not every capital ship the British have, nor every capital ship the US has, nor every capital ship Japan has. Just because the G3s are running around, that doesn't automatically make Iron Dukes no longer capable of slapping older and Japanese and American capital ships. It doesn't make the Iron Dukes no longer capable of single-handedly bodying the Italian and French navies in an afternoon.
Fundamentally, the 14-inch ships are kept around because they can put up a fight against the 15-inch armed battle line. The British aren't getting rid of the 15-inch armed battle line. Iron Duke...
the Kawachis were gone by Washington.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And so
Japan
you
had
say
no
how you
12-inch
go...
guns. Yeah,
They
go ahead,
stick
sorry.
around because they can throw up a fight against a 15-inch armed battleship and a 14-inch armed standard.
Yeah, and also the Fusos and Iseis are part of the they are battleships 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the Japanese 8-ship battle line. They're not insignificant assets. They're not throwaway assets at all for the Japanese.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
it
they're
is
kept
their aiding
around because
plan.
they're still relevant.
And I mean, for example, just to use an example I gave, for the British, if given this new world where the Americans and the Japanese have more potent ships, what a perfect use case for the Iron Dukes and Tiger. Throw them in the Mediterranean fleet. That's just overmatch against the French and the Italians. It's right there. It's done. It's done. You've solved the French and Italian problem in terms of capital
No,
ships.
aside from Tiger and the Iron Dukes, the 13.5 are gone pretty quickly.
No, that's what I mean, though. That's a use case for keeping them around. You can put them in the Med. You don't have to worry about it then with some of your more modern ships.
No. They get distributed across the Empire.
Well, yeah, that as well, but you know what I mean? It's just an example of a use case you could find for them.
Because
Maybe
Well,
not
quite
Tiger.
frankly-
It depends.
the Iron Dukes, one hanging out in Halifax, one hanging out in Singapore, one hanging out in Hong Kong, they are perfect Imperial trip lines. Because if someone wants to fuck with any of those regions, then the Americans want to come
Oh,
to
that's
play.
a bright one.
Oh, it's obvious the Americans are aggressive. They just sunk our battleship. Or it's obvious Japan's aggressive.
Yeah.
They just sunk our battleship. Or
Yeah.
of course, China. We need to go punch China again. China just sunk our battleship.
Yeah.
Like
So
that
I
was
think,
the
yeah.
use of the 13.5s.
You see them all over the place, like in pictures in the interwar period. The Iron Dukes just turn up in places. It's funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like we have given that question a fair due. Chandlord Chandel, Dragon. This is for Dragon. Would it be fair to say the Imperial One is the best capital ship, a ship between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, class in service / introduced during the Galactic Civil War period?
Dragons had to dip for a while.
Fuck!
Next question.
Brackman asks, in 1949, the Japanese sent a force from the Battle of Samar sails into Tokyo Harbor. What would the reaction of the Japanese and the Allies be? Immediately, the Japanese government would order them to surrender.
Pretty much.
And they probably would surrender, because the legitimate Japanese government is ordering you to surrender. If necessary, it can come from the Imperial Palace. And then that fleet will be disarmed.
'49 might actually be late enough where there might be the US might come knocking around being like, let's talk about whether we could keep some of them around.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on when on '49.
Yeah. I think the capital ships are definitely being broken up. Although Yamato in particular might be very interesting for the US to have a look at.
That's honestly what I was thinking. I think they might actually be like, okay, let's keep Yamato around just to sail up and down the Korean Peninsula.
I mean, honestly, I think there will be. Well, actually, no. I think I know exactly what will happen. The ships will be held while the Japanese and the US, the US who is still occupying them, have a vigorous debate about what the fuck they're going to do with this fleet.
Pretty much.
And then that debate will still be going on when Kim Il-sung pulls a funny. And at that point, suddenly having 4 battleships, 5 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers, with lots and lots of, although more accurately, it's the heavy cruisers and the battleships that are more important, available and ready to steam, suddenly becomes, okay, let's put this whole debate on hold and go and blow up some communists. And we'll talk about this later. Although they probably will sail under US flag rather than Japanese flag for the signaling reasons that you really don't want a fleet of Japanese battleships and cruisers flying the Imperial Naval, well, the Self-Defense Force or Imperial Naval Ensign shooting at Korea. It doesn't exactly send the right message.
I mean, hey, if you really want to, you now have a 80,000 or 70,000 ton target for Bikini.
Well, they won't have decided what the fuck they were going to do with it by that point. This is the thing. It's basically...
I'm just saying. You now have a 70,000 ton target for Bikini.
Yeah. Typical gunnery officer. Do you believe the myth that the
But we're
British...
still in the period of the occupied Japanese government, and they're still trying to purge fascist legacy from Japan.
Mitsumasa Yonai is going ham with his sledgehammer.
Yeah, and well, you've just reintroduced fascism to Japan.
It depends on how. It depends on. It's going to depend entirely on how the officers take it. If Yonai is able to work closely with the officers in command of the force, that can be nipped, and I don't see there's any reason he wouldn't be able to. That should be able to be nipped in the bud very, very easily.
But that's not what that was not the main linchpin of the democratization of Japan. It was the absolute shattering of Japan's militarist history and legacy. And that
Well-
it's reforming in the 50s and the 60s. You've just returned a significant chunk of that imperial and militaristic history to them.
I mean, it's not.
That's
your fault.
not being shattered at the bottom of the ocean.
I mean, but it still has been shattered because it happened. So you've got a weird sort of dichotomy
Yeah,
here, which I would therefore argue is you can still visibly. Like I say, this is why I think the debate over what's going to happen to the fleet will take as long as it will take. Because how you deal with it, it has to be handled carefully.
Sonkara gets the last.
I don't think it's that clear cut.
Because it happened in 49. This is before Japan's rehabilitation that comes with the Korean War, after the Korean War.
It's not that hard to just put those ships under U.S. jurisdiction.
Yeah. And the US won't want them, and they're convenient targets that no one will miss. Well, the US government in the early 50s, no one important will miss.
Hmm.
And why would the Americans care about them from a historical perspective?
No, I completely agree.
It depends. Who knows? Maybe someone in the 50s will suddenly be like, huh,
The destroyers.
we need
the destroyers
we need
will-
quickly arm Japan with something.
Yeah,
Let's just give them back their old ships that we have just sitting around somewhere
Probably that's
from
probably
that
only
weird ass incident.
That's probably only the destroyers though, and maybe the light cruisers because they're old and shit and nobody really cares about them.
Yeah, and
And-
part of
and
the reason
like we
that
said, who
Prince
knows?
Eugene was chosen to be the last was because, and the recordings were distributed, and it was specifically leaked into West Germany. It was to get rid of the legacy and help in denazification.
Yeah,
Well, no, not really. Prince Eugen is an inoperable mess.
But a good reason she's chosen, because they didn't actually learn anything from nuking her. They nuked her to prove a point.
which is good. Right. Okay. Typical gunnery officer. Do
Eh.
you believe the
There was
Yeah.
a whole bunch of destroyers that was useless there as well. It makes no point other than just it's supposed to simulate a fleet.
Yeah. Anyway, can we
Yeah, move on.
Typical gunnery officer, do you believe the myth the British Meteor F8 flown by British pilots could outperform the US pilots
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
here we go.
F-86 in the Korean War against the 15s? No, I do not. Do you think the US pilots were not as good as the UK or Commonwealth pilots at air combat over Korea, and for the lack of skill they had to compensate with the Sabre's radar-guided fire control system to use to shoot down MiGs? No, the US pilots were arguably the best aviators in the skies over Korea. They were literally flying at the bleeding edge of what was possible aerodynamically, and were basically having to come up with combat tactics on the fly to deal with trying to do gun kills at the speeds they were flying at. Both sides had to come up with entirely new ways to deal with air combat, both the Russians in their MiG-15s and the US pilots in their F-86s, because the speeds at which these aircraft were engaging each other rendered most previously used combat tactics moot. And it was the US and
Yes.
the Russians that were leading the bleeding edge of that. The British
There's a
Meteors...
reason the Meteors, just as in by what Fleet's saying, there is a reason the Meteors got relegated to CAS and low-level air superiority missions. Even the F4s. Because by Korea, the Meteor's an obsolete airframe. Hence why the Vampires did it.
hmm
Sorry, I just had to point that out.
That's fine.
I also laugh at the skill part when you consider pretty much all sides are throwing in their World War II veterans into
Yeah,
this
I'm
fight.
sorry. Korea's just the best of the best Thunderdome. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's and okay. There's a very good argument that, especially early on in the Korean War, the Meteor pilots are the best pilots there, purely because they're the gang that have actually seen jet versus jet combat. But once the Americans actually get bloodied in jets, the Americans actually have the resources and the mass to make it work.
Like, the F-86 is a fantastic aircraft. Really is.
Beg to differ.
There are a couple problems with them. They spend quite a while fixing them, but yeah.
Oh, that's a really good question, actually, Knight. Hey, hats off to you for this one.
So just to clarify, the big issue with the Sabre, especially in Korea, is the fact they're still using 50 cal.
M3s, but still.
They got good burst
50
mass,
cal
but that
don't
is
work when you're tickling the sound barrier.
Yeah.
Like the big,
eh.
the failure
That isn't even the biggest issue.
but it's the most obvious and easiest to understand.
Anyway, we've got a question from Knight, and it's actually a really good one, and it's a really interesting hypothesis. If Fisher hadn't wholesale scrapped the ironclad fleet in the 1900s, when would the last one retire, as the fleet was being phased out? That is actually a really interesting point. If Fisher hadn't basically done what had been long since needed and scrapped all of the rebuilt and refit ironclads that were being kept around for showing the flag or
1922.
just on the books, you think?
Yeah.
A whole pile of them will be in reserve by World War One, but officially scrapping probably 22 when the treaty's signed.
Yeah. Because a lot of the post-ironclad ships get scrapped in response to the treaties.
Yeah.
Why would the
That's the
ironclad
latest.
survive where the pre-dreadnoughts didn't?
Some of them are probably going to get scrapped before the war, so you know.
Yeah. It's going to be a slow and fragile, but the ones that are sitting in, on, say, the Niger River are just going to sit there until the treaties.
Yeah. Typical going officer, do you think turbofan or turbo reducers in float planes or flying boats is a bad idea, since we rarely see a seaplane with jet engines in mass usage? No, they can work perfectly well. The problem is just that seaplanes and flying boats kind of fell out of favour with the mass, with basically World War II's mass construction of airfields fucking everywhere. Suddenly, places that didn't used to have airfields had airfields. And as the jet engine proliferates, the need for seaplanes and flying boats kind of goes by the wayside. Now, they are still needed, and you do still see modern seaplanes and flying boats appear with jet engines. Beriev BE-10, for example, the BE-42 that exists in Russian service today, which is the one of few flying boats still going. The turboprop is used in a lot of flying boats as well, so that takes off in quite a big way. Haha, but Tish takes off. I'm here all night.
Boo.
Also, Dragon's back, thank God. But in terms of seaplanes, you do see a few tested. So you see the supersonic one, the US builds. You see Strike Master, the US also builds that, which looks an awful lot like a BE-10 for reasons we don't quite understand. Probably the US and the Russians came to the same idea for a fast jet-powered flying boat. But it's not that the using jet engines on seaplanes or flying boats is inherently a bad idea. It's just a circumstance of the way in which aviation went after World War II. The need for float planes or flying boats.
What kills the flying boat is the advancement in long-range heavy airframes that comes after World War II. And because the advantage of the flying boat in the 30s and the late 40s is the fact that you can make them much bigger than a conventional aircraft. With the advent of the airline and the large airframe, flying boat dies.
Mm. 1971 on YouTube asks, so what reason would the Royal Navy need to give the UK government to get one extra 1911 King George V, one extra Iron Duke, and one extra Tiger built? Basically, you would need to have another scare. You would need to have Fisher come up with another scare on top of the ones he'd already come up with.
No, you
Basically. if you want an extra ship for the Iron Duke, KGV, and make Tiger a class of 2.
No. The Royal Navy are building out Germans. If the Germans lay down an additional hull, the Royal Navy will lay down additional hull.
Okay, but if they don't,
That's all you gotta do.
but if they don't,
Then the Americans lay down an additional hull, or the
If-
Russians lay down an additional hull.
but if nobody else lays down additional hulls compared to historical, how are you doing it?
You don't. You don't need it. But if you really want to force it,
You could just
the Royal
use-
Navy's got spare fronts.
Fair enough.
To be fair,
Because
you
in
only-
this period, the Royal Navy's given an amount of money and said, build your ships with it.
Yep.
And the Royal Navy's not spending its entire budget. It's doing annoying stuff like investing in infrastructure.
Okay. Typical gunner officer. During the Normandy landings, why didn't the USN or the US Army requisition the turreted LTV with a 75mm howitzer or 37mm gun, the LTV-A, instead of using the unreliable Sherman DE tanks that mostly sunk in the channel? Expected threat environment. The threat environment that was expected on the Normandy beaches was expected to be far too hot in terms of weaponry that the vehicles would be facing for the LVT's armor to be of any use. It's not like in the Pacific where you're coming ashore on wide open beaches. Yes, the Japanese do have some heavy firepower, but they don't have the level of infantry, anti-tank, and anti-tank guns that the Germans do. It's the infantry anti-tank that's the real thing though, because that's the thing that everyone's worried about when it comes to actually selecting the DD tank concept. Its invulnerability to stuff like anti-tank rifles, some of the smaller rocket-propelled grenades the Germans have, and some of the guns that the Germans are known to be putting in their coastal defenses, like some of the older 37 and 50mm guns that they've taken off some of the older Panzer IIIs they've decommissioned as the war's gone on, which the Sherman,
You're not making
which
much
the
sense,
Sherman
What
can
is the
shrug
question?
off. During the Normandy landings, why did the USN or US Army requisition the turreted LTV with the 75mm howitzer or 37mm gun, the LVT-A, instead of using the unreliable Sherman DD tanks that mostly sunk in the channel? And as I said, it's the threat axis you're expected to face. The LVT is not heavily protected enough to deal with it.
Not really.
Yes, really.
It's the composition of the beaches of Normandy.
Plus, also, there's actually a few other factors. The 37
Us-
was deemed right out as it wouldn't actually be an effective unit for fighting on Normandy, notably due to the bunkers.
Right. So, there's a the topological map of Normandy, up the Normandy coast. It's a lot of hard rock and a lot of sticking up hard rock that's irregularly shaped. And it doesn't have sandbanks. It's a lot, especially around where the Americans are landing, you transition straight into bedrock. Which is part of the reasons they choose to use D-Day tanks. And the LVTs were unsuitable for it. 2. The D-Day tanks, they were nice on the landing, but their purpose wasn't to be the foundations of the landing. It was naval gunfire. Because the Allies know that the Germans have a Panzer division waiting around Kornsen, however the fuck you say it, right?
Mhm.
And both the British and the Americans are going, okay, so we need to have tanks ashore day one so that they can be past the fortifications by the time the Germans are counterattacking.
Wait a moment.
So it's more of a case of, and D-Day tanks and swim Shermans did get used in the Pacific.
Also, the 75mm variant was only have been entering service 3 months before D-Day.
And the actual firepower of the
That's not that
tanks
long.
didn't matter because of the sheer amount of naval gunfire.
Also, it's the short 75, not a long 75.
All of that doesn't matter. Because even if the army did ask, the Marine is not going to give it to them.
They're busy in the Pacific. They need them.
like-
Saipan is
literally-
occurring a week after.
and
Literally,
Hear me
all I
out.
could, all I can see in my mind now is literally the U.S. Army looking at the Marines, and the Marines looking. What do you want? I'm busy.
People genuinely forget about the fact that there was 3 amphibious operation that occurs within practically the span of 2 weeks
Yep.
on completely different sides of the world.
Woo!
hear me out. Hear me out.
Yes.
So the American army, when they're landing, are also using terrapins and ducks.
Duck. Quack.
And it's like they're not using the Pacific amphibious vehicles because they've got their own that are specially designed to land in Norway. So not Norway, Normandy.
Yes.
Because Pacific
is
Islands are
mostly-
completely different sea conditions than the English Channel.
Indeed. Indeed.
The
And the fact
LV2's
they're trying to
buoyancy in
land-
the English Channel would also be very questionable.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Because so here's the thing. Remember that D-Day takes place on the 6th of June. The 6th of June is when you have already entered storm season in the North Sea and the English Channel and the Irish Sea. So they needed a lot lighter craft to land.
Was it? I'm trying to remember. Was it a storm that delayed it or already?
It was a storm that delayed it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was delayed it or threatened to delay it, but yeah. It had to be
If
delayed
they
at
had
least
gone
24
2
hours.
days
Any-
earlier, they would have launched into a storm.
Yeah.
If they had gone 3 days
was it.
later, they would have launched into a storm.
Yeah, no, from what I've double checked, because it's what I was getting slightly confused, but I was right about both points, which was confusing me. Yes, it was delayed due to a storm by 24 hours. And if it said if there was another 12 to 24 hour delay, they would have not been able to launch for another 2 weeks.
And that 2 weeks would have thrown them straight into another storm.
Well, that 2 weeks would have meant also every single German position could have potentially been filled.
Yeah.
Every day is a chance Germany realizes, ooh, that's not right. They already had stuff on the way.
And it's like, both the British and the Americans are building custom equipment and custom landing craft for Normandy. So
We'll see
why
right
would
now,
they take
so-
shit off the Marines?
The Marines,
Marines
will
that
kill
will
you
fight
trying to
tooth
take
and-
their shit off you.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
Marines that will fight tooth and nail to go, that is mine.
We need this shit for Saipan!
Yeah, if push came to shove, the Navy would have said, fuck it. Saipan can wait, we're going in on Normandy. Because of Germany first. Let's be real, let's show the Marines actual combat. Opposed landing.
Well, let's be real here. It won't be, the Marines won't be delayed. The Marines will just go in without the LVTs.
Yeah, show how the army did it in Sicily and Italy. Anyway, next question.
Yeah.
Wait,
Hang on.
Fleety Weety.
Give
Do not ever call me Fleety Weety ever again, Foxo, for goodness sake. Anyway,
You're
so
the one
now
that
Weety.
you're the
now-
one that
so now
decided
that-
to call this
so
a
now that-
birthday bash.
So now that Dragon's back, so Dragon, we have a question for you
Yes, I think it's
from Channel Lord Chandel. Would it be fair to say the Imperial One is the best capital ship, that being a ship between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, in service or introduced during the Galactic Civil War period?
No, because it wasn't introduced in that period.
But the in service / introduced.
Yeah, because the Imperial One dates back almost 20 years before this. Because we know the Imperial One... Correction. It depends on which one you go with, but the Imperator, which is effectively an Imperial One, entered service in the last year of the Clone Wars. So 19 BBY. And as brutally honest about it, while I like the ISD one, up to 20 ABY, or was it 22 ABY? There are improvements. Now, I still personally would rate it slightly higher than a Nebula, but in a one-on-one engagement between an ISD-1 and a Nebula, the Nebula's gonna win that fight, because that is what it's designed to kill. It's not even the anti-capital ship variant, which would be the ISD-2. I would say the modifications done by certain commanders is definitely better, notably swapping out the guns for octuple barbeted to turbo lasers. Basically a halfway house refit between the 1 and 2. Yes, this is seen by Thrawn, but also we do know other Imperial commanders went, this is a really good idea, actually. Keep the anti-starfighter defenses the way we've got them, and do so. Almost if that was slightly higher, I would have said the Ascendancy class Star Destroyer might have been better, but that's 2,100 and 0.8 of a meter. I don't know why it's that 0.8 of a meter, but it is. Best multi-purpose, probably. But yeah, I wouldn't say that is just a outright this is the best ship to exist. Because there's a lot of stuff at the time.
Nix.
Okay. It's term of endearment. Funny. Dear. Okay. So, actually, you know what? I will answer this question. Why did the US fit a gun stabilizer on the second variant of the M60? Why didn't they install it on the first variant? I think it was something to do with doctrine, I think. Off the top of my head. Unless any more tank nerdy people know the answer to that question.
They don't have a stabilizer big enough for the 90. Until
Stabilizers are pains in the ass.
Yep.
they take up a lot of space, and they are a very finicky piece of equipment.
He's talking about the M60's first variant, not the M48. So they have one for the second variant of the M60. Why don't they have one for the first variant?
Because they don't have a stabilizer that's good enough for said gun.
Yeah, the stabilizer that they have for the M3 isn't good enough for the improved 90.
And it
It's
takes them
heavier,
a while
and
to
it's
get.
longer.
It takes them quite a while to get one working, or get one that is reliable enough.
In the end, they end up buying several examples of the ones that get installed on the Centurion Mark 7s. And they base their stabilizers off that Twin Pet Linear one.
Which makes sense.
why-
You're,
Yeah, and why do
you're
they
trying
do
to
that?
stabilize
Well,
all that.
and then you ask, well, okay, why did the Americans eventually end up going to a Lawson for the 105 stabilizer? Look at the development hell that was the 105 stabilizer. There's a reason modern tank guns aren't stabilized. Correction, modern guns cheap. But they're not gyroscopically stabilized. Like guns of this period are. Well, they're trying to do.
They're stabilized in a very completely different way.
It's more active fire control than it is proper stabilization.
Basic idea nowadays is you have a stabilized gun sight, and the gun mount is just there chasing after the gun sight.
But at the time, the M60 and the Centurion are going through their last generation. Well, the Centurion's going through its last generation. And the M60's coming in. You just don't have the digitized fire control systems that allow that.
No
And
way
actually
that-
balancing and stabilizing a 105 and a 90mm is a pain in the ass.
Okay, so Colonel Lord Chandel asks a hell of a question, but it's definitely an interesting one. Hang on, wait, why is the bot on? Bot, why are you on?
I was going to ask why you
That should
did
not.
that.
You should not be on. Why are you? Okay, well, first things first. We'll get that.
British style monarch. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll fix. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I said stop that. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop that. Should not be on. Stop that.
Viva la revolution.
Stop it.
Oh, well, please fix this.
For the record, it's not actually me doing anything with the bot. It's just the bot is having a French revolution against Fleet.
Stop it.
Oh no, the French are revolting against the Francophile.
Stop it.
Oh no, the French are revolting. World
Yes, I
order's
know.
gonna get thrown into chaos.
I think the bot is having a moment.
Anyway, I just don't want to say the question.
Well, the questions are picked out by Fleet, so
That is the next
It's
question.
the next.
Ukrainian
It's the
one.
Ukrainian one.
So if someone wants to read that out,
Ukrainian-
please do so. Moe, you want to have a crack at reading that out? While I'm just wrangling
Alright.
the bot.
Thanks to some magical shenanigans, Pavlov Scooter, some Russian name, unites the anti-Bolshevik Ukrainian element under his command, promising and instituting a British-style monarchy in Ukraine with the rough border in the accompanying map. Fleet will have to figure something out for that. Gaining Ukrainian independence. You are the naval minister, and at your disposal is the remains of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in 1919. What do you do?
Leave it to rot.
So I've done some research on this question, so I've been prepping for it. We've actually got a lot more options than we think with this.
They don't.
Will you let me finish?
Let him state whatever condition the fleet is in.
So, as of 1919, the fleet we inherit is as follows. So, we've got the Imperator Alexander III. She's seaworthy. She's intact, but she's got war machinery, but she is capable of operations. There's Volya, which is, again, another Imperator Maria class dreadnought. She's also seaworthy, but she's been poorly maintained. The other two members of the class are either scuttled or exploded. We have Trace Svetlana as a pre-dreadnought. She's hulked. Rotislav is a stationary depot ship. Sinup is completely mothballed. She's non-operational. Georgi Pobedier dos Senets is in reserve, but she could be reactivated if we need her to be. In terms of cruisers, we've only got 4. We've got Kagul, which is a Bogatyr. She is operational and is fully worked up and ready to go to sea should she need to. There's Pamiat Mercuria. She's seaworthy, but she's not really combat ready. So... And she is very, very, very old. I think. Oh no, sorry, she's another Bogatyr, I think. Or is she? Oh no, sorry, no, she's not. She is actually the older one. Yeah, she's the older hull. Yeah, so she's basically useless. There's Almaz. She's an unprotected scout cruiser, and she was a seaplane tender. But I mean, as a seaplane tender, she's possibly useful to us, but she probably should stay in reserve till I figure out what the heck I'm doing with the fleet. We've got 2 flotillas of destroyers, one set of 4 Noviks, of which 3 are operable, but Yevny's got a crew shortage, Zaki has fatigued machinery, and Zante is actually down for repairs. She needs to be repaired, so we've got 3 ships out of 4. Fitzoni class destroyers, again, we've only got 2. So Kerch is just gone. She's scuttled in 1918. Calicria has mechanical issues, so she's in the yards. She's not really ready. But we have 2 ships of that class that are... One is fully operational, ready to go, and one is just seaworthy. But, again, needs some... would need working up, / a few, probably, crew putting into her before she's ready to go again. And we have a bunch of older destroyers and torpedo boats, but none of them are really worth much. They're all either broken down or repaired. Our Moorish class submarines, we've lost one of them's wrecked, one of them's in reserve, and one of them needs repairing. The American Holland boats are mostly okay. One AG-22 has a crew shortage, but she can be brought back into service. AG-21's ready to go. AG-23 doesn't have parts, so we could, if we can get parts for AG-23, we can get through those 3 boats. We can get that 3-boat flotilla up and running. We've got our mine layers and auxiliaries are mostly okay. Now, given the map that we have, we do still have the full infrastructure that maintained the Black Sea Fleet within our borders. So we can build naval guns up to 6 to 8 inches. We can roll homogeneous armor if we need to. We're not building like anything like a battleship or anything, but we can definitely keep we can definitely keep our ships operable if the money's available. The problem is going to be the Foxo, do you mind?
Go on.
The problem is going to be the dreadnoughts, really. The pre-dreadnoughts probably need to be scrapped, or put into deep mothballs. They're not really of much use, and the only real viable threat to the Ukrainian fleet is the Turkish battlecruiser Yavuz, of which having one of our battleships ready at a moment's notice and one being worked on / repaired / refitted is more than adequate to keep her in line. The Turks don't really have modern cruisers either, so for now, Kagul can remain active as the cruiser of the fleet, and we have enough destroyers for now to keep everything running. Provided that this nation is stable, and according to the question, it seems to be so, presumably we'll fight alongside the Poles against the... Well, since it's 22, presumably we did fight alongside the Poles. when Trotsky tried to do a funny, given it's 22 and that war will have concluded by that point.
Wait, okay, I'm just gonna point them out. Look at the map. Look at the very far western province of Ukraine.
Yeah.
You're occupying a city called Chem.
Mm-hmm.
You're occupying metropolitan Poland.
Well, I'm not. I'm just the Minister of the Navy.
But this state, the Turks are the last of its issues.
I'm aware the state has issues, Foxer, but I was just laying the groundwork.
Yeah, but okay, so let's go over some of the land issues.
Yeah,
got
this
that.
is what I just wanted to get what we could do navally out of the way, but I then needed to
Probably nothing.
So go on, Foxo. You want to break down why this nation's
Well-
an incoherent mess?
Because you're occupying the North Caucasus. Those, until the Bolsheviks push south, are constant Cossack states, and you're occupying a large portion of them. And the Cossacks want every form of central government out of the northern steppe, and are fighting both the Bolsheviks and the White Russians to get it. And historically, they fought the Ukrainian anarchists to get them out of the Azov region and the Rostock region. So you've got a war in the east that's going to be a forever war. You're occupying a part of metropolitan Poland. And I'm not talking about Lwow, where it's a mixed population region where the actual metropolitan cities are Polish, but the countryside is Ukrainian. No, you're looking at majority Polish regions. In the middle of the Polish Revolution.
I did think the map looked a little bit maximalist. I was going to be honest with you.
You're occupying regions of Bessarabia. Means that you've been fighting with the Romanians. And the Romanians also, in the early 20s, get involved to drive the Ukrainians out of Bessarabia. Fourthly, you're also occupying regions of Belarus, who have their own revolution going on that's not Bolshevik communist, and they're also trying to kick you out of southern Belarus. And fourthly, this is in 1919. What happens in 1922?
The map is 1922, so assumably all those wars have finished off. The Ukrainians bashed everyone's head in and took the territory, which admittedly leads which leads to problems down the line, to be fair.
What happens from 22 to 28? Yes, the Bolsheviks come for round 2. And you're fighting a massive land war against the Bolsheviks.
At which point everyone else dogpiles in to kill you for the land that they want as well.
Which is basically kind of what happened historically for the Ukrainian government. Well, the Ukrainian Republic. And it's why I was giggling at the idea of keeping ships around to fight the Turks. Because the Turks are the least of your worries at this point. Actually, no, you're also controlling Circassia. Which means you're also dealing with the Circassian and the Georgian Revolution as well. Meaning that you've got a political state where everyone wants to invade it, massive land borders, and you've got sole dominance over the Black Sea.
And of course, Crimea at this point isn't Ukrainian. It's Crimean Tatar. The genocide hasn't happened yet.
Yes, okay. Crimea is a mixture of Crimean Tatar, Crimean Ukrainian, and Crimean Greek. And Latin. Because people forget until the Bolsheviks and the Great Purge, a lot of the Ukrainian coast was Italian. And even to this day, there's Greek colonies in Ukraine and Crimea. Fun fact, Crimean Greeks are still a thing. Like, at this point in time period. Yeah, and so, as Fleet pointed out, you've got this big fleet, but you've got the same issues the Soviets had and the Bolsheviks had. Especially because if I remember correctly, this is before Ataturk in 22? Fleet, you're the Turkish nationalist here. When does Ataturk finish up?
mid-20s. So basically, after the final, Turkey doesn't crystallize until after the final conclusion of the Greco-Turkish Wars in 24-25, and that all winds down.
In 22, your
also,
state has existential issues on land.
Yeah, and navally.
And absolutely no reason to have a navy.
And also, quite frankly, navally, the Turks don't come back until the mid-30s, when Yavuz finishes her reconstruction.
Yeah. And so, even if your naval industry survives, it's been taken over and retooled for land wars that are going to happen.
This state won't survive, actually, I'm looking at it. It won't survive. It has no friends and all the enemies. It can't form partnerships. It can't form anti-Russian partnerships with Poland or Romania or the Caucasus states or anybody else. They're all going to want to kill it rather than see it live.
Because, yes, the Poles are going to come and kick your teeth in. Because the Poles have the industrialized centers in Warsaw and Gdynia. And Western Poland. And they actually have foreign backing as well.
Yeah.
But once they've driven you out to Lviv, okay, I'm not going to say his name because twice there's so many consonants in it. But the Polish national figure, then at this point, he's very West Slavic, if that makes sense. And once Ukraine is kicked out of Western Ukraine, they might start picking up friends. But the big issue is just going to be the Bolsheviks in the 20s. Because Trotsky's just going to lead the Red Horde west. As he did. Yeah. But Cvix, it's still going to be a coalition against you. Because that's implying that the Polish nationalists would work with the Russians. Or the Belarusians. Or the Romanians. Because everyone's throwing hands with everyone. So you're hoping maybe the Poles save your ass? But even then, Poles aren't in a position to save your ass. Yeah, I mean... Because... best case scenario, and assuming that the state doesn't start to disintegrate once you do this, if you cede eastern Poland to Poland,
That might buy you enough.
You might have a friend in Poland. You might also have a Poland that's like, we really want to rename Kiev again. Kiev should be Kazhau.
Yeah, this is the thing. They don't. Neither state can trust the other one because both fear betraying each other to the Russians for their own benefit.
Yeah. And the issue is that you're trying to get nationalists to work together.
Yeah.
And one of the things the Russians were very good at was playing the Poles and the Ukrainians off against each other.
Yep.
Like, there's a reason that the Russians resettled Poles into Western Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that and the legacy of the Commonwealth, because Ukraine's been settled and... What's the Polish version of Russification called?
Polification? Polifying?
I suppose Polification would work. We're stuff like the Unitary Church in Ukraine. Well, this is talking pre-partition here, by the way. Because remember, Ukraine was under Polish control for something like 600 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So, Flea, what would you do as the Navy officer and Chief of Navy in this situation?
Basically, I've got a few options. Long-term plans.
Better stop training naval regiments.
Long-term plans are out of the question. What I could do, actually, I think Foxo makes a good point there. I think training a naval infantry detachment / Marine Corps is not a bad thing. Focusing on maybe replacing / I think getting all of my destroyers back into service is not a bad idea. Because that then grants me a force that's useful for coastal work, which I might need against Romania, which can then escort the Marines in to do coastal raidy shit if they need to. I think I should try and keep at least one of the battleships running just for the hell of it, for as long as I can. Don't spend too much money on it though if it's going to come at the expense of stuff like the naval infantry, building up a riverine patrol force, and a coastal force. If I can get spares for the Holland boats, that'd be great, because that's a really quick and cheap way to get 3 submarines running. And if I can localize production of those spares as well, that'd be great as well. But beyond that, I can't really commit to any long-term plans, because anything I do is going to basically be swept away by the chaos of war. I mean, committing to trying to build 8, 9, or 10-inch guns again, or maybe even trying to build new 12-inch guns, phrased as a coastal defense reignition scheme, could work by providing heavy artillery that can be put onto railway chassis for work in various conflicts. But that's kind of a little bit of a pie in the sky. Beyond that, you can't really do much more than that.
To respond to Stevix for a second. It's actually quite interesting, because I've been, when it comes to what did it say? Russia restarted Poles to Western Ukraine, excuse me. So I've been reading about that time period. And during the 1880s and especially 1885, when the Russians are attempting to Russify Poland, one of the policies they have is forcibly resettling Poles around the Russian Empire to try and break up the Polish cultural identity and enforce assimilation into Russian, including stuff like policies of enforced resettlement and enforced conversion. And one of the regions fleets that selected in this time period, from what I've been reading, is southern regions of Ukraine, where they're resettling Poles from from Russian Poland, into parts of Ukraine to try and break up the Polish national cultural identity, while also breaking up the Ukrainian identity.
Those sneaky bloody Russians.
I'm just going off what I've been reading, but
Those sneaky bloody Russians. Sneaky Russians. Right, okay, so I'm going to pick a few more questions to get through, and then I'm going to end it, because I would like to do some other things this evening, because I do have work tomorrow, but I would like to do a few little other things this evening. So, let's see, what do I want to pick for my questions I want to look at? Okay, I think I've picked a few that I want to do. So we'll do Slayers. So, Slayer. Oh, fuck it. Just for a thought exercise, use my last question. Let's say on the eve of the Washington Naval Treaty starts to be drafted up, all the ships laid down and planned are suddenly finished. So, G3s, N3s for the British, the Francesco Carachuelos for the Italians, the Normandys and the Leons for the French, the Lexingtons, South Dakotas for the Americans, the Tosas, the Amagis, the Keys, and the number 13s for the Japanese. Are all finished and appear in their nation's major respective ports nearest to their capital. How much does this change? Or basically, I'm going to also change that to wherever they fit, because it makes sense. How much does this change the Washington Naval Treaty balance of power, apart from making Italy and France cry for years? Who is the biggest winner in this? Okay, first of all, before anyone else jumps in, you've not made Italy and France cry. You've literally replaced their battle fleets for them, enabling them to scrap the menagerie of other ships that they don't need anymore. I mean, for the French can basically scrap everything that isn't a Normandy and a Leon. They might keep the Britannias, maybe, but probably won't with the post-war slump. That still leaves them with 8 ships with 13.4-inch guns. So they'll be happy. And even with the Francesco Carachuelos, even if the Italians keep their other dreadnoughts that aren't the Francesco Carachuelos, they're still outnumbered by the French in terms of the Normandys and the Leons, which the older Italian dreadnoughts can't fight.
What's the sense of the question? Sorry?
Oh, I just
I
read
had
it
to dip out a
aloud.
second. Yeah, I just gone back out to dip out.
Basically, everyone's stuff that's laid, they have planned for pre-naval treaty is built. So, Britain gets all the G3s and N3s. Italy gets all their Francesco Carachuelos. France gets all their Normandys and Leons. America gets the Lexington, South Dakotas, which I find odd because, I know, Trantosa, Amagi, Key, and number 13s, etc. all just appear.
Yeah.
Before the Washington Naval Treaty starts.
So we will.
Discussions.
When it's starting to be drafted up. So basically, first things first, the treaty is a dead entity. The treaty is a dead entity. And that's basically down to one thing: the Japanese. What the British and the Americans get fundamentally doesn't matter. The Japanese have been given so much. The Japanese capital ship fleet has basically been completely regenerated. They don't need to keep anything older than Nagato and Mutsu. You've completely shifted the balance of power in the Pacific in Japan's favor. Even with the additions to the US Navy, the Japanese are still ahead in terms of modern fast capital ships in that area. The US battle line is woefully not ready to actually fight that.
The Treasury would cry, but yeah.
I mean, not if they're
It set the
finished.
precedent for 18-inch guns.
Yeah, I mean the British and also the British are fairly happy.
Yeah,
With the G3s. The British are fairly happy with the G3s and N3s, although what they have to now commit to the Mediterranean to deal with any French or Italian problems has become significantly more of a commitment. You basically
really.
you
It's gonna be
can't.
revenges and QEs.
Yeah, all of
Yeah.
them. You have to commit all of them if you want to actually counterbalance the.
All of them.
Yeah,
No.
you can't commit
You-
just 5
You
ships
just
to deal.
attached a pair of
Yep.
N3s to
Also, you
Port H.
Right. Well, I agree. You can't have only 5 ships. You're not going to send 10 dreadnoughts You're not going to send, all the QEs and all the Rs.
Why not?
Because that's unnecessary. You send, like,
It's
Where's your home
very
fleet then?
It's very
What's in your home fleet then?
probably the G3s and the N3s.
No, they'll be scattered. You'll probably do what the British did for the Mediterranean fleet. You'll cycle in at least one or two 16 or 18-inch armed ships. So you probably have of N3s, or possibly a pair of G3s, depending on how mean they want to be.
Yeah.
Alongside with maybe 6 15-inch armed capital ships.
Okay, literal, what's going to happen is you're going to have 2 N3s in Alexandria, 2 in Gibraltar.
Wouldn't you want
frankly, both-
G3s instead?
No, hear me out. No. G3s would be the home fleet and everywhere else. Because the Mediterranean against the Italians and the French, that's the sort of fight the N3s would love.
Honestly, yeah.
Older battleships where they're still relevant speed-wise, that they can just start bitch slapping their way down the battle line.
The only exception
Because
is
you
if
put a Normandy, even in a pair against a G3.
a pair of Leons could do it. Just the sheer hail of
Oh.
13.4-inch fire. 16 guns
No,
per ship.
the G3, so the N3 to protect from the Rhone 18.
Correction. They're resistant to their own 18s.
Well, I agree with that. I would point out that 16... hang on, what's double 16? 30... 32's 13.4-inch shells landing on this N3. I'm not saying I'm not saying that it's going to break something important, but it's going to break something important. It's not going to kill the ship, I don't think, but it's going to break enough important shit that the N3 is going to have to go.
My counterpoint to that is, give me a sec, Foxer. Yes, if this was purely, and I mean purely, the British detached a single N3 alone, and the French sent a battle fleet against it. The British are not going to do that. They'll detach an N3 with probably a couple of QEs. You'll probably have 3 or 4 ships in that fleet. If an N3 is going out, it ain't going out alone.
Chandler, I said Britain and France don't cry. The Italians, sorry, the Italians and the French.
Right.
No,
They do.
Right.
no, the Italians, the French are happy with this. You've given them a fully homogeneous. You've given them a fully homogeneous fleet, which means they can scrap everything that isn't basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
And
think
I
you're partly
would agree with you if it wasn't for the N3. Because the N3 will start an arms race.
So, yeah. But I will say, Fleet was
Because-
partly right.
Yeah, because the Americans are going to have to respond to the N3s. So will the Japanese.
well, the Japanese have a response. It's called number 13.
Number 13 is going to get bitch slapped.
Number 13s aren't that bad.
But
They're not
compared
brilliant, though.
to 9 18-inch guns on a ship that's resistant to 18-inch guns, protected
Yes.
against 16.
Counterpoint. She's got 8 18s of her own, and is 7 knots faster.
Like this
She's
is
also built like a battle cruiser.
this is
No,
true,
she's
but
not. No,
Uh,
number 13s are the battleship. They are built like a battleship.
the number 13s
Yeah.
were the Japanese finally getting to this concept of a fast battleship and blending both
no.
the battleships
That
and the
was the
battle
keys.
cruiser.
Well, not
Right.
finally.
That was the
Okay,
keys.
right.
The number 13s are
Okay.
the successor.
Compared to how heavily built the N3s were supposed to be.
Fair enough.
Because where we're looking at with the M3s an internal structure that's you're looking at going.
I do think you obsess over internal structure far too much.
It is very important, but
It is, but I
Yeah,
do think you obsess over it too much, Foxo.
But but it is more the fact that the N3s no matter what can take a punishment. Because they're built to. And the structure proves that they're built to. It's not like say Hood, where she can take a hit, she can't take several. And the issue for the Italians and the French is, got a new fleet, yes. Fleet that they're gonna have to replace relatively quickly.
I'm not sure on that. Basically, because you're looking at the same situation that we had historically. The British, the French have no, like, obviously everyone plans for war against everyone else. That's just the period we're in. But this isn't going to fundamentally change into war French calculus that their primary threat navally is whatever the fuck Germany comes up with once it's unfucked itself. Maybe the Russians, but primarily it's the Italians. And
This is why I said you're not entirely wrong.
Like, and against the Italians, yes, the Francesco Carachuelos are a problem, but if the basically the Carachuelos are basically the Italians' force multiplier, but they have a problem that wherever the Carachuelos aren't, France just wins because the other 4 Italian dreadnoughts just can't stand up to the French ships. The Normandies absolutely body any of the Italian 12-inch dreadnoughts, and the Leons just absolutely obliterate them while laughing hysterically. Now, obviously, and this has also enabled them to scrap basically everything that isn't these ships. Because I'm sorry, given France's position post-war, there is an edge case they might keep the Britannias, but given that they have 2 classes of 4, what's the point? They might keep the Britannias solely to make sure they have more capital ships in theory than the Italians do.
Like, but big issue there is the N3s have changed the frame of reference.
They have if you're planning to fight the British, which the French are not.
But it's more of the fact that if the British are rocking about with 9 18-inch guns and a 15-inch armor belts, the Japanese are going to be going, okay, once we're building ships again, we're building something better than that.
Yes, this is correct.
Ultimately, the French are going to have to take into account.
I fundamentally
They don't have
disagree.
war plans against the British. They do have war plans against the Japanese.
You're missing something to a degree. It's the fact that, yes, these N3s have changed the field. Same with the G3s. And it's not a matter of America or Japan's reaction. No, it's Italy's reaction. Because Italy is looking at Britain as a potential hostile.
Yeah.
So Italy will have to make something on par.
Yeah.
And as soon as that has, France goes, oh god, not again.
France has Indochina, which she has to protect. Yes, she does, but the French reaction to protecting Indochina will be exactly the same as historical. They will lean on their submarine force. Because it's the only realistic...
What, in the 30s they plan on sending their battleships over?
It's the only realistic outcome they have. They will lean exactly the same as historical until France has recovered to a point where it can resume naval construction. That is the way they will go.
On a fundamental level, the 13.4-inch guns have the issue of, at that point, they're barely capital ship guns. When people, when 18s
to back,
at the upper end.
To back up Fox's point a bit, in perhaps a slightly different way that's a bit better to phrase it, the 13.4-inch is effectively the equivalent to when Britain had the 13.5-inch. So the Orions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the beginning of the French super dreadnoughts. Their equivalents.
Yes.
The problem is, the 13.4-inch is no longer, and the 13.5 is no longer the mainstay gun. It's not even the second stay gun. It's the third line gun, because already the 15-inch gun has shown it is a vastly superior gun, on average for capital ships.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the problem. 16 and 16.5s came out. So correction, actually, I was correct. It was a fourth line gun. And now, not only are you still sticking with 13.4, while the enemies have had 15, 16/16.5, and now 18-inch guns. You're almost 4 generations of gun out of date. In terms of power. It was already known that these guns were having issues for the period they were looking at for fighting something like a Queen Elizabeth. It's a case of, well, why are we sticking with 13.4? Just slap more on. Because we're having trouble trying to get anything else.
Hmm.
Which is also, France is going to be crying, because this is France post-World War One.
Mm-hmm.
Going through 30 governments in 30 days, basically.
Yes.
They are, and these ships are going to be far more intensive to maintain than the previous ships. And the previous ships weren't exactly great. It's not going to be a huge difference, but they need different dockyards and slips versus some of the originals. They need slightly better equipment.
They've got
Well,
a more intensive
Normandy's-
crewing requirement. They've got larger crews.
Yeah, there's a reason why I'm basically saying you're going to have to gut the entire rest of the French capital ship fleet to keep these. That's why I'm under no illusions
yeah.
on that front. Which is not a bad thing,
But-
to be fair,
Yeah,
considering what they're getting in exchange. But what I would say, I agree with what you're saying, but what I would point out is the following. So, I don't disagree. The Italians will be looking to, at some point, build responses to the new wave of capital ship construction. It's going to depend. As and when this response takes place, it's going to depend entirely on the Italian internal situation and what the British do in terms of their deployments in the Med. How regularly are the N3s frequenting the Med? If it's fairly regularly, basically from day one, then I expect an Italian response as soon as is practical. And that's probably going to be in the mid to late 20s. And we'll probably be building off the Francesco Caracciuelos, basically going for a... Given Italian shipbuilding capability and a desire to keep costs low and work with the Caracciuelos, this is going to sound a little bit out of left field, but I would be very unsurprised if, given what they need to do and the speed advantage that they already have over the N3s, they don't build another set of 28-knot ships with 6 or 8 18-inch guns. Basically down to the fact that the reason I'm saying 6 or 8 is 8 is what you want, probably, but that will be absolutely pushing the limits of what Italian yards and gun foundries can produce. Whereas 6 guns on 4 ships it's less of a stretch in terms of size of ship and cost to build.
Because the bottleneck's going to be the Genoan gun foundries.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to be expanded anyway for 18s. Because they were
Yeah.
being pushed to the limits for 15s.
Yeah. Then the French will have to respond. I expect the first French response will not actually be to the 18-inch guns. I expect France's first response will be to build a set of capital ships with 8 or 9 15-inch guns that can actually catch and kill the Caracciuelos, with response being primarily dictated by a need to respond to the Italians rather than anything else. However, I expect that once the French have built those ships, the ships that follow them will have 18-inch guns, and will be designed to deal with, in theory, any of the world's capital ships. If you want to talk about people that are crying, it's Germany.
Germany's not crying as much as the French.
Germany's not crying. Germany's just going.
That's it. We're
You know,
done.
it's
We're
a
out.
real it's a real good thing we didn't have a horse in this race yet.
But unlike in historically, they're not going to be able to get a horse in the race like they did historically. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not. Like, the Deutschlers just don't make any sense in this world.
Yeah, but and if the Germans do, the Germans are going to have the frame of reference of
They know
for a
what to aim
battleship you
for
need
now.
18s.
Mhm.
So if they do commit to the battleship bit, you're probably going to see a significantly delayed shiny horse with 16 or 18-inch guns.
Um,
The Russians is interesting because they basically look to the Italians because we can't do that.
you basically see the Russians do what they did historically, look to regenerate their force from the ground up from the bottom up, which is the right decision.
Probably fail, but
Well, no,
They just buy
didn't-
Italian.
They didn't fail historically. They did succeed in regenerating their
Ugh.
infrastructure and ability to generate their force from the bottom up. They succeeded. Otherwise, the post-war building plans wouldn't have worked as well as they did. This is
when
the
even
thing. This is
when
the this is
when
the
even
thing.
the propaganda department of Leicester starts going, actually no, most Russian ships in this period were mistakes,
Would you
because
Would you
right,
please let
of
me?
ships that we're
Would you
considering
please
success-
let me finish? They succeed. I said they succeeded in regenerating their ability to do new construction and regenerating their fleet from the bottom up. I didn't say that the fleet that they got was a good one, but what I did say is that they did succeed in regenerating their fleet and the ability to build ships like destroyers and cruisers from the bottom up.
Regenerating the fleet implies they have decent enough ships.
No,
They don't.
regenerating the fleet literally means you've regenerated the assets within the fleet. That doesn't mean the assets you've used, created are good.
Okay,
That
right.
means they need to be
Right,
serviceable to
right. Okay. They didn't regenerate their ability to make capital ships. They didn't until the Cold War.
Indeed. That I agree on.
For their cruisers and destroyers, they went and bought in tooling and expertise in the 30s. Which is why the stuff like the Kravny Kravkaz and the Leningrads have so much Italian DNA in them. Because they're Italian designs that were bought. And most of the
Yeah.
components were
You've
built
also
in
got
Italy.
You've also got the whole bits of the Kirovs, because they were heavily influenced
Yeah.
by Italian designs.
Indeed.
And then they decided, yes, let's stick a third gun in there and get slower rate of fire.
Yeah, the Kirovs were...
Actual lower
Yeah.
shells per minute than if you just stuck with twins.
Yeah, the Kirovs
Because
180s triples were a mistake.
Also, the
not-
fact that a number of the destroyers... Sorry, give me a sec, Fox. This one. The fact that a good chunk of their destroyers did not have enough fuel to go from Murmansk past Norway and back again, without having to remove their ammunition and replace it with fuel bunkers.
Well,
There is
okay,
multiple
okay,
cases of the Russian destroyer fleets that went on convoy duty. They had no ammunition for their main guns.
okay,
But what they did was stored in crew quarters.
Okay, I'm gonna actually push back on that a little bit, because, while what Dragon says is all correct, I will point out that Northern Fleet's destroyers were primarily intended as point defense assets for the areas around Murmansk, and were not designed for open sea work.
No, they were. They were designed for open sea work. There was the whole thing in their actual design specifications. But to try and get the other things that were after, they sacrificed range to
Which
do
was-
so.
Which was an acceptable sacrifice given what they were expected to do.
And then when they were asked,
Based off
and then when they were,
Mediterranean destroyers.
and then when
And
they
they
were asked,
found out that on paper they had the range to do the convoys, but they're Mediterranean hull forms, so they consumed a lot more fuel in rough seas,
so when they are
which
asked
led
to
to
do
them
what,
not having the range.
so when they are asked to do the job they were designed for, they couldn't do it.
That fundamentally comes from the fact, and is their outgrowth of Stalin's purges of the design bureaus.
So it's why I
Which is
wouldn't.
why domestic design in the Soviet Union doesn't discover until Stalin's fucking dead.
So on average, the Russians are basically, we're out of this race. We can't.
Unless the Italians are willing to sell. Which the Italians are willing to sell, because Mussolini was.
Even then, though, it depends what they're willing to sell.
Yeah.
They were
But the-
willing to sell certain bits for Soyuz, but
Mm-hmm.
even then, Soyuz didn't have that much Italian DNA because they looked at it and went, "Oh, well, we don't want that, but we don't want this. We'll do it ourselves."
But she does use the Punjali system,
Yes, that's one of the few
which
things
is
she does.
very Italian.
Mhm.
But the issue is that if the Italians are going to be the ones that start an arms race in the Mediterranean, it's a race they can win, and the French can't, because the French are broke as shit after World War One. So the French are going to be crying then. And then, assuming the naval treaty still happened, just differently, because I believe that's part of the question.
Hmm.
Well, no, it's it's not that the naval treaties have it. How does this change the Washington Naval Treaty balance of power?
Which we've described.
Which the
Yeah.
answer is it just doesn't
It
really happen.
obliterates it. It obliterates the balance of power.
But somehow they managed to do it. Be really
But-
jealous.
So assuming that the we don't build treaties still parts of the treaty still happen. The Anglo-German naval agreements are still going to happen. Because those are fundamentally based off appeasement, not what the Royal Navy wants.
But at this point, they can happen with a fair degree of Royal Navy comfort, because what are the Germans going to build
Yeah.
that can realistically challenge what
Yeah,
the Royal
but
Navy has?
The Germans were already expanding the Krupp metalworking plants for 15-inch guns. In the context of the British are running around with 18s, and the British are building new ships with 16s or 18s.
Hmm.
They're going to expand the Krupp plants to
How-
build 18s themselves, or 20s.
How successful that is,
We'll
more
see.
for debate, but they'll at least try.
Yeah.
We know Krupp got the metallurgy right.
Yes.
I mean, Foxo, we know
And they
Krupp. We know Krupp
Some of those
can
guns are still in service.
build, and also politely, we know Krupp can build much bigger guns than that, because they did.
Well, they build, what is it, 16.2?
No, Dragon. You're forgetting.
Unless you're referring to, right.
You're forgetting the massive elephant in the room. The massive
right.
long-barreled elephant in the room.
I'm not, because, right. So I literally have a Lego model of it. The problem is with that is something not even close to comparable to a naval gun.
I would argue that given its barrel length and the way in which it's actually mounted, I would actually disagree.
It's not an equivalent thing, because, right, similar aspects, sure. That's more because it took from naval guns, not the other way around.
What are we talking about? I'm getting thrown about the
Gustav.
railway gun.
Schwerer Gustav, the largest gun ever built.
800mm. Technically not the largest gun ever built, but
The largest gun that ever
Wasn't
saw
that a
combat.
glorified? Is that the glorified mortar one?
No.
no, that's the Kalkarat, 600mm. It's the 800mm railway gun.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, this is why we're saying that Krupp absolutely can build these bigger guns. Just a matter of-
I was using that as proof that they got the metallurgy right.
Yes.
That gun's going to be useless because you can't put it on a ship.
Well,
but-
yes, yeah, but we're also again we're agreeing with you and backing you up.
That's why I'm more going off the idea that I'm more going off the fact that they did make, I think it's 16.2 or something, whatever, that sort of thing, because they actually built those and they end up in Sweden. That's a more example of them being able to build a naval gun, personally. Because, for instance, the Gustav wasn't rated for ocean conditions, which is actually quite a big difference.
Yes, it is.
But my point is that Krupp's got the science behind how these naval guns work right. They've got the
Yes.
metallurgy right, and they're rebuilding the plant to be able to build 15-inch guns. If they're willing to just not engage with the 11 and cut out the 11-inch and speed up their expansion plans, so they don't finish the 11-inch for the shiny horses, the Germans can probably
Oh,
get
Shan
18-inch
Horse, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, shiny horse.
I just confused.
Yeah,
Confused Fleet
you have
Knight.
shiny horse in the guy's house.
I fucking
Guys in the house.
It's better It's better than one of the other names that normally calls it.
Anyway, could you finish your point so I can wrap up this
Yeah.
this session?
So my point is the fact that the Germans, they have the science and they have the industrial capacity to make 18-inch armed capital ships if they go for it full ball from 32 with the start of the Anglo naval agreements. So when the Germans start making capital ships again and they're coming out with 16 and 18-inch guns, France is going to fucking have a panic attack.
Hmm.
Because not being able to match the British and the French calculus of war is okay. God knows the Royal Navy has cock-stomped the French so hard repeatedly they just don't even try. But the Germans? The French built the Richelieus to deal with Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. And the Richelieus pushed the limit of what the French industry could make.
They bloody had to build it in segments.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, they did.
And that was for the shiny horses. A shiny horse with, say, 8, 16 or 18-inch guns,
Yeah.
and a biscuit with 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
France is having
Yeah.
a panic attack,
Yeah.
and all those 13.4s are coming up.
Yeah. For
rather-
replacement.
All.
Yeah. Yeah.
And France
Yeah.
doesn't have the capability to match that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. With that horrible disappointment and the fact that the French Navy is basically dead forever on our lips, it is time to bring this to a close. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been a pleasure, as always, to have you all around. Thank you to my co-hosts for being here as well. I'm now off to go and get my head bashed in by a bunch of people in Hearts of Iron 4, because, yay, of
Good
course
luck.
I am. Good night, everybody.
It's up to get back tonight.
Oh, before I forget. So next week, all being well, we will have a special guest who will be discussing the we will have
You'll find out then. You'll find out then.
Daniel
I wouldn't know, so I've got who
um,
to run damage control with.
Daniel Blumentritt to discuss the board game Victory in the Pacific.
I'll
which
mention it.
is-
I think I'll have to mention that to Zui because I think they quite like that one.
They play it. They
so-
invited you to play it.
So
Is that the one where you've got the various different ships?
yes,
Because that's
and you
you
basically refight the war in the Pacific from
yeah,
either
you've
the
actually actually a whole
Japanese
bunch of
or
expansions. Mm.
Allied side.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know Zui very much likes it, so I'll make sure to mention that, message them about it.
So yeah, everyone tune in for that next week. Yes,
I
Knight.
like Fox, so
Yes, Knight. I don't have burnout from streaming, but I'm just taking it easy at the end of the year.
it's the Christmas period. Works ramps up at this period. It's just a case of
Yeah,
Fleet
I'm,
need a bit of time to be able to
And-
unwind and
I need
decompress.
money,
Yeah,
so I
because
can't stop
Fleet needs a
working.
good bashing on a night at this point.
Oh, shut up. Anyway,
I want
good night, everybody.